interesting movie. It marks the directorial feature debut of Panar Panahi, and it is an Iranian movie. And it goes for 94 minutes, PG rated. I've got to ask just what's going on, because that was a question that characterised the start of what's a whimsical family drama written and directed by the gentleman that I've just mentioned, and we're on this cross-country road trip with a mother, father, an eldest son and a younger son. Just where we're going, well, it's not really clear. What we can say is that there are many stops along the way. The dad is played by Muhammad Hassan Manjuni, and he has a broken leg. He's on crutches. It's been that way for about 5 months. The eldest son, Amin Simia, who is at least 20 years of age, is at the wheel of this motor vehicle, and he says very little. In fact, he's not very expressive at all, although his driving skills are constantly being questioned by his father. The younger son, Rayan Sarlak, perhaps aged, about 4 or 5, is the antithesis of his brother, an energizer bunny who can't stop talking or sit still. The one instruction all have been given is not to bring any mobile phones on this road trip, and yet the youngster has smuggled one into the car, and now his distraught his mum is making sure that the phone is buried, literally. Also in the car with them is a sick dog that father rescued. The boy is attached to this dog. He doesn't realise, though, this young boy, that the trip's really about taking his brother to a point where smugglers have been paid to take him across the border. And to that end, his parents have actually sold their house to enable that to happen. And while Mum, played by Pantia Panahaiha, understands why her eldest has to do what he's about to do, she's highly emotional about it. This is a family that hurls insults at one another and yet cares deeply for each other. And in the case of the parents, much of their thoughts and feelings are expressed in their eyes. I reckon there's a sense of yearning that accompanies this movie, Peter. We long to learn more about the characters, but much is left unsaid, and it's up to each and every one of us as an audience to interpret or to read between the lines. I mean, what struck me immediately was the naturalistic performances.
Absolutely. Iranian cinema is really so interesting because on the surface you have very simple sort of stories, a family situation or group of children or whatever the case might be, and yet what is on the surface is hiding deeply political, cultural and religious issues that, of course, these filmmakers like Panahi, who's I think the son of Jafar Panahi, and Kirstamian.
Who the authorities are constantly watching, by the way, the father.
Yes, exactly. And so we get this sense of unease that there is something going on under the surface that is an infraction of some sort that has to be punished, or a political issue, or something that has to be resolved in some way. And they're on this journey to reach that resolution, which is unlikely to be pleasant. Look, I was very impressed by this film because of what it didn't say and what it leaves the audience, a Western audience, to interpret and understand, because there is a lot of complexity going on with the way these characters interact and the dialogue that we do here and the motorcycle gang that we experience halfway through the film. So if you like...
I should add to that not just a motorcycle gang, there's really only one or two of them, but they're hooded. I mean, the characters are hooded. Obviously, they don't want their faces shown. And I should also say, I mean, it's important that we do mention that, I don't know whether you've read an interview with the director, the writer and director, but apparently he wasn't in any way curtailed. They gave him permission to film, which is important, because, I mean, to me, like... almost another character. It is another character. It is the landscape. The interest. Do you remember that rocky outcrop very, very early on in the piece? I thought that was stunning. And the cinematographer, Amin Jafari, really captures that magnificently, that Rocky Mountain range early on, but also the expressions on the faces of the characters. I just found it really appealing and evocative in that way. So, it's great that he's been able to make a movie like this, and it sort of... there's I agree with you that there's so much left unsaid, but that's part of what makes this movie much better than good. Much better than good. It really is. This is a filmmaker that we've got to watch. He's not a young man, by the way. I think he's about 37. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man that this thrusts him, Hit the Road thrusts him onto the world stage. It's won quite a number of awards at film festivals too. So
yeah, and it just demonstrates the power of Iranian cinema at displaying stories carefully so that it doesn't offend the censors or the government or whatever, so that filmmakers can continue to make films that are very subtle in their political allegories.
Greg, what struck me...
I haven't seen this one yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay. So, Peter, you and I will talk a little bit more about it. I mean, the naturalistic performances, let's talk about that. Mohammed Hassan Manjuni, this sort of comic gruffness to his role, just such an incredible face. I know that's a strange thing to say, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. A really strong showing, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and the mother as well. You read so much into their faces because they are going through emotional rigour quite significantly, and yes, that idea of looking and I suppose staring at the audience to some extent, so that the audience understands that there are real depths and issues that are going on here.
It's kind of like breaking the fourth wall, isn't it? Pantia Panhiha, she's the mother, empathetic and caring. There's a very late scene where, was it Children of a Lesser God with William Hurt? Single Teardrop. Was that? Do you remember the one where he cried on? This is many years ago now. It reminded me. I hope I've got the right movie. Greg, can you verify that? You know, there was that Single Teardrop in a movie going back into the 80s. Was that William Hurt?
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, there was I think it was the left eye. A teardrop forms in the corner of her left eye, and you don't need dialogue. It just speaks volumes. So that was her. But the real revelation to me was Ryan Sarlacc. This kid he was 6 years of age when he shot this and plays a 4 or 5 year old. What a performance! What a find! He's lively. He's precocious. Immensely talented. Didn't you think?
Oh, absolutely, and had a lot of dialogue actually, which was really interesting. Yes.
Just this. I mean, you sort of want to gobble him up. You just wonder what he can do. He's just got this incredible. He's got drawing power. That's what he's a star. This little kid, an absolute star. And I've mentioned the cinematography. There's also a nod as we reach the film's conclusion, Peter. There's a nod to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that occurs as the father's having a conversation with his son about the comic book hero Batman. That came out of the blue, didn't it?
It did, although I'm trying to make the connection.
But make the connection with what?
2001.
Well, hang on. Again, I don't want to spoil it for people. Think about what the visuals were. Think about what the visuals in that sequence were. They were specific, again, with stars and non-natural. I mean, again, I just don't want to go any further than that. Maybe we'll talk off air. It definitely was. And, I mean, I was listening also to the director talking about it, and he acknowledged that it was a nod to Stanley Kubrick's 2001.
Okay, all right, yeah.
But look, it is slow moving. We've got to mention this. Nothing happens things happen in their own time frame. So that's not going to appeal to everybody. But I think it's a really thoughtful and engaging piece of work. And as I've said, I mean, the highest compliment I can pay it is that you make a movie like this, and all of a sudden the world pays attention. And I reckon that's what the world's going to do. So, score out of 10 from you for Hit the Road, which runs for 94 minutes and is rated PG, Peter.
Another very impressive Iranian film with so much to say. A 9 out of 10 from me.
Wow, that's a heck of a score. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. So again, it's an independent sort of movie. It's not a mainstream production. Just be aware of that. But there's going to be a lot of people who will appreciate the style of it. And go and see Hit the Road. You are on JAir 80.